Yeah, it should be February 27th, 2019, 7:44 a.m. Uh, Reason why I'm making this video is a dog situation. Hope, the dog here. Yesterday I was watching her, and I overheard the neighbor next door, Purdue. It seemed like a voice talking to her from inside the house. I had the back door open. And this low-toned voice, but manipulative with the dog. Hope stood up and took a crap. Instead of doing a normal dog crouch or, whatever. Hope's a female, of course. Said she. And I was like, well, that's gonna she had poop on her the other day. Like she intentionally pooped as she came up the steps on each step. But at the same time, I was there with her. Like maybe she alleviated herself coming up the steps. Being behaviorally unruly type of situation, I guess, would be the situation. Delinquent, but not really delinquent, just intentional behavioral dissatisfaction. And it being rubbed in my face that, hey, I'm capacitated enough to control your dog and you ain't. And I'm gonna have to write that down so I can mesmerize it to write a situation. Bet you if I look into dog psychology or a psychologist, they'd tell me somebody is trying to make a outside bond with the dog that they shouldn't be. They did the same thing with the dog named Munster. And they tried the same thing. Munster wasn't pre-trained like Hope was. I had made the accusation and kind of confirmed it in New York City back in 2015. That basically Hope's like a forensic dog. Besides just having normal bonding and influencing from the outside, that was specifically trained before she got to the household here with specific techniques and skills. Maybe like the people who trained her already knew her from next door. And me given a false situation of how the dog was acquired, and well, somebody died, passed away, and gave it to me, and here we're going to keep it in the house, and then I'm going to move off, and you keep the dog. What I'm saying, resembling there, is my mom said somebody passed away, and they gave her the dog. Somebody was giving or taking the dog. She took the dog, and next thing you know, she leaves it here for 2 years, while she's gone in Colorado Springs, Colorado. So that's another burden on myself when the first situation with Munster the dog, which was decided by myself, calling him Munster, I thought. Munster, I do believe, is German, which would suck. But I was into the monster, Munster. I don't know how, I won't say I don't know how, but I need to re-recollect the reason why the name was acquired that way, besides looking at the map, and I remember seeing Munster on the map. And not thinking twice that it's German, and I'm no longer getting along with German people who are right now, per se. At least not the ones that are attacking. Let's put it into a severe mode that way. And also locally doing it right here. German organized intelligence. Anyways. With that being said, she's out back right now, and it looks like she already had poop on her from yesterday. I went to check her, and I try to do that often so she doesn't get it in the chair and all over the place. And like she does it, like rub her ass up against my leg, while she's also influenced by multitudes of different neighbors that have done nothing but try to dominate my situation and outright, like I said, like make it out, you're so incapacitated you can't take care of yourself. Had a discussion at a institution that was falsely probated, but we discussed about my abilities and what I should have to deal with. What is mandatory? What is the leastest life expectations I can get away with, and is that okay? Sad to say, but hey, if I'm completely, I can say I couldn't even care for a dog to a point at the moment. And then have somebody imply that I'm unfit for trying to take care of a dog that they brought into the house. Munster was the same situation. But with that, I'm going to get back into that. An untrained dog and somebody trying to influence how much bonding, trying to ridicule the situation of, We have the capacitation. It's a normal situation, and you don't. That means there's something wrong with you. We don't like you, one, but there's something wrong with you. Well, hell, I outright came flat ass out with that. I've been so sick. Hell yes, there's something wrong. That's why I'm complaining I'm fucking sick. I can't meet my own standards. Like something has alterated them. I've been messed up and screwed up somehow to the point I've lost my abilities. With that being said, everybody plans some type of legal tactic of enforcement. If that's the case, that's incompetent. It's like, now, well, if that's incompetent, we own your assets. We got these rights. We know our shit. Repeating a situation just like with my grandfather and the mind state I took from that for my teenage years when he passed away. And even before he passed away, the things that was trying to come into intervenance and me thinking it's freedom and independence and somebody wrongfully attacking somebody, but at the same time, that's not just a single person, that's the whole family. People abusing the elder, but to a point. And some of it I found out was an abuse, that they was legally trying to apply these tactics while in my face trying to make it screwball type situation. Not just one person in the family, multitudes. With that being said, going back over into Munster and the dog, how it's manipulated and how they're manipulating me, utilizing the dog as access to emotionally harm me, to psychologically injure me. And with that being said, someone always, horse jockey, participating socially with social amounts of ridiculement of power, which is bullshit. How is that happening when most of the people that are around aren't connected? You don't know me, you don't talk to me. And they all act, and I know the house is being eavesdropped on, more than likely wiretapped, legally and illegally. I'll just say illegally, because the way they've utilized tactics anyhow. With that being said, so associating shit that they shouldn't even know, like they're all up in my business, that is normal. Ho, 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 what you gonna do about it? You know, like military generals being involved, somebody trying to ridicule, we got a legal right to do this shit. And even if they had some type of an excuse, the abilities that they're utilizing are just unfit for the situation, is the way I feel. But with that being said, jumping all the way back to Munster, an untrained puppy, generating its mind and somebody being able to influence, like I talked to Twin Valley, influence the dog from the outside of the house inside, be it neighbor, be it somebody intentionally walking in behind the house or like the next block over and just outright trying to communicate with the dog, interfere, if not basically make their own bondage. Now dogs have a certain, the way I'm saying bondage is to speak, to not even just speak, communicate, obey, and make the dog obedient in their own tones. And anybody understands that. Well, I did understand it. I could feel the situation. Now I can't. And hey, buddy, that's wrong. Now that we fucked you up that bad, now we got a bigger right to restrain because now you're too screwed up to wipe your own ass. Haha. Well, maybe I'm not, because I could wipe my own ass. Not to get into that, because that was asked. That type of situation of like, how bad are they trying to ridicule? And how bad is it? Is it to the point you can't take care of yourself? And they're trying to force me that way. Like a story of a man named Danny Fuller from the family's friend's past, supposedly committed suicide, but he's still alive. And it's an Italian situation with that, and they all just in here playing around with basically organizational power. Not just Italians, all the people that are messing with me. There's groups of different people, different race, different shit. A lot of the main situation is homosexuality. But it's all played with power and trying to associate of breaking me down with that power. Including toxic family members, and seriously very ill toxic family members. I have to understand myself, life, if I'm not capable of normal life as most people, then I need to accept that. Well, if I was going to accept that, I still want a path to accept, but that being taken advantage of. Well, if you have to accept a path, I'm going to set it for you. Well, to find out the path and the situation they're trying to set is illegal. Human neglect and human rights violations, abuse. Oh, well, you got to listen to us. We're in charge. We just have the right to become in charge of you because you're mentally retarded. That's the way society works. Being told all kinds of different things. Even though I wasn't diagnosed mentally retarded just yet. And with that being just yet, they should have said never, for the fact I wasn't retarded back in the day. If something's developed since then, there have to be more than likely a physical cause depleting my ability to think. And the emotional, psychological assaults of what I'm saying, or harassment, creating a situation to where I'm shutting down. Even though that's the severity, and it'd also be looked at, of me not taking care of myself because I don't know how to fend for myself. But at the same time, depending on the values and advantages these guys are utilizing. Past history of rape, past history of psychological, physical abuse, past history of whatever they can do. And there's United States military that had been involved that knows this. So it's more like a psych tactic on top. Almost like, if not a real operation. Haven't been able to completely prove it, but hey. If I am correct, they're also enforcing a transsexual, transgender transition for myself. And trying to make it out that I need to accept who I am. Does it look like I got a beard on my face? Does it look like I understand who I am? I have to be told who I am? These guys are in here contaminating food all the way down to water. And I don't have proof of it just yet, but still being said, of to help the transition, like transitional medication. While they also farm, is the way I'm going to put it, whole shitloads of transgenders and homosexuals, but a lot of it now has come down to transgender, transsexual shit. So where there's multitudes of them around. New York City, New York 2015, there was a mass stop pit to it, at least a mass stop of representation pit to it. And that helped me out more than anything in the world. A lot of the assault now is nothing but transgender. I need to figure out how to transition right my ass. Forced transectomies, trying to basically enforce while I'm underneath a lot of physical body pains. And if I complain, we'll just make it out that you're psychotic complaining about ghost feelings. This, that, those, and the others. But let's get off of that situation, go back to the original. Was going to talk about dogs. Basically, the way I put it is bonding with the dogs from outside, inside. Intellectually, mentally, household obedience, intervening, interfering, and the dog obeying, making them, usually it would have to take a bond, a certain amount for the dog to be that obedient. Even if it's normal social bond, like a postman trying to tell them I'm a friendly person. But somebody that is not to necessarily abuse that. They could be doing it just like the doctor said, psychologist. But that's a human psychologist, even though it probably similarity of understand his actions and understand some pet psychology that understood what was going on there. That was only with the first dog before the second dog came along. Second dog, I understand, was highly intelligent, wasn't a pup, and had excessive abilities and amounts of different techniques, like a forensic dog of abilities to learn. While these guys try to rub it in my face, teaching the dog, communicating and intellectually challenging the dog inside the house with games, situations as such. Seriously. Also attitude, behavioral problems, and the behavioral problems grew, and they're growing and growing, and then making it out that I'm incapacitated of not knowing what to do. Here in Columbus, Ohio, you can't take your dog to that dog pound freely. I don't know if that happens everywhere, which I would hate to do, because understanding maybe euthanization, which would suck. But who you would think in the hope that the people that's fucking with the dog would go in and rescue it. Unless, of course, just like myself, the dog doesn't really mean shit. It's just a write-off. That's the kind of feeling that it is. But anyways, you can't also let your dog go in Columbus, Ohio. You can't tie it to a post or banister. It was a loss. People started doing that, and they put a stop to it probably 6 years ago, maybe even more than that. but it was like 6 years ago on the news and stuff like that, something like that. It's where I memorized that. It's a misdemeanor charge of abandonment of pets, abuse, neglect type situation. Could you imagine being abuseful and neglect, trying to give your dog away? Taking it to the pound, even if you took it up to the pound and tied it up next to the dog pound. Abandonment of your own dog. To give it to the pound, they require a fee. And they require shots, they require all that stuff, and a fee. So just to give your dog away, and this PC right in front of me, unless it's been off for 2 hours, it just kicked itself on, and then it should shut off. I don't know if those lights can be seen. The lights down here? Okay. I'm about to say a lot of electronic jamming going on, but that was normal. Even though I need to calculate that 2 hours roughly after the last touch it had after being put to sleep. Anyways, getting off that topic real quick. But yeah, could you imagine the cost while somebody's massively, intentionally distressing that? Look, we caused you problems and then giving you more problems because you're going to have to pay for that problem. Utilizing also that they're utilizing law enforcement or government technique, a lot of it's law enforcement authoritative technique, to investigate, profile, and all the rest. I have other videos, I'll line it up, I want to write stories and all the rest, but I can't quite do it just here because they're eavesdropping, while I'm also being teased. Micro voice is what I'm saying all the time, while I'm being related of what I'm doing, like it's a good or a bad thing. It would be no different than the peers at school not agreeing with the story that you're writing and telling you you're a piece of shit. Which happened. You're a retard. Nobody wants to listen to it. Which might be somewhat the truth, but at least it's also profilable information. They hate when I write the correct and power information that has strength to it, because it completely puts them into disregard and their ability to be disregarded, dismissed. And they hate that. They shouldn't have showed the hate to that. That means there's corruption, misconduction, manipulative situations. Manipulation sometimes is not legal, even in legal investigation. There's so much shit that, well, you better be right with it being threatened. While they're also threatening, you better come off with this and that, and we're bigger than you, bitch. And you know what's already happened to you. Whatever, you can run your mouth, but you know you ain't shit to us. Whatever it is just outright trying to take away my power and strength. And this has happened for decades and decades. There's a path of where some of this became because the people involved are homosexual organized involved. That's at least one key factor everybody's understood. Even before they could accuse me of a crime, even since I was a child, I went back into childhood memories and started realizing it's like understanding a family member when they sexually assaulted or sexually harassed, and it was blown off, and years later, even if it didn't affect you, or you was told not to allow it to affect you for some reason, you look back in the past and said, no, that was real. The denial of that, or understanding now with new information, or understanding something clicking from the past, that somebody is involved with something that either they shouldn't be, or they didn't expose that they was, or whatnot. Like homosexual organizational, or gay rights foundationalizations and whatnot, without being racist towards it, or what you call negative for right now towards it. But because that would be discriminative. And that's another leverage situation they keep utilizing of ridiculement. And it's all about ridiculing all kinds of shit to break me down. Ridiculing that, we got a right to. And then go talk to lawyers, go talk to psychologists and everything else. And the way they're doing it, no, they don't have a fucking right to. They're enforcing it on you. They're pushing and forcing it on you. That's illegal. That's wrong. Mentally capacitating, wrong. Personally, life value, wrong. You also have a right to disagree with it. So, that being said, I'm going to end this video and I'll upload it. But pets being interfered with. And I went into today in hope, and she has, just to come into the conclusion, yesterday I watched visually her stand up after the neighbor next door with, like, giving her the attitude of, like, sisters, I would say. And this is psychologically, oh, they're so good, that's fine. It was already discussed 7 years ago. If I was already having problems, why would you give me more problems? Anybody that had a psychological understanding background would not do that if they're trying to help the person out. Makes sense. Somebody psychologically trying to injure. Socially, systematically, my character, not only keeping it around the house, but exposing it and trying to intimidate that they're just tearing me up, which is disgrace of character, which destroys, is a legal term that destroys social life, which is the same thing as social death. It's almost like being murdered, to the point of no pleasure in life, no quality. With that being said, started to blank out here, so I'm going to try to get this going, because there's other things that's causing that blank out. And that's one of the problems, being under so much duress that is causing psychological problems. But anyhow, you know, creating all these problems with this, just part of the pet situation, the psychology of, you don't know how to term things, you don't know how to pit things, and you don't know how to deal with things. Doesn't matter. It's discussed 7 years ago to a certain point that's correct. Where's the rehabilitation? Oh, if we help you, we want to take value. We want to have recognition for that value. Like treating it like mental retardation. Also utilizing a restraint of capacitation with it. If we help you out or acknowledge it, we want to incapacitate you with, like, being some type of guardian, custodial, caregiver situation. Pitting it into that feeling, I was told at the institution that represents the county here that's illegal. The tactic itself is illegal, and if found out, can be punished. Much less stopped. Let's just go with, even without looking at trying to, you're going to get, which I shouldn't have to lower myself to not believe that they wouldn't get in trouble for it. But at least the relievance of mind situation of saying they can put a stop to that. And it didn't stop. Somebody's not doing their job. You're working with the system and not stopping. You're pursuing it. Well, it's a tactic. It's working. It's breaking him down. That's all we want to do. Well, I guess I'll have to try to figure out how to bring my mind back even to 7 years ago, which was already still messed up, and all the other stuff in between. But there's a lot of good things to say that helped me rehabilitate and realize that I was being attacked and brought back down from being able to incline, to accelerate, which is bad terminology, to achieve, to become better. And all of a sudden, as soon as I have the ability to capacitate to become better, someone trying to block and destroy that to the point that I'm only at a certain level for their specification, so they can control. It's a toxic situation, like the doctors called it, and like the internet that I came up with the information now, they're dubbing that toxic. Toxic relationship, toxic family members, toxic community, toxic situation. Very nasty, low quality, if no quality, life helping situations, life supporting situations. At which point they're trying to make a situation that you are basically on life support with a state of life so they can control you. And some legalization with a state of life because they're trying to deem you without the abilities because they've broken you, whoever might be this be happening to. Me talking in that type of phrase, whoever this might be happening to, those people that are messing, that type of situation. If you're in the situation, hopefully that was understood. But trying to break you down, break me down. I don't want to look bad for flip-flopping that, but that's the way that is. Anyways, I'm going to go ahead and end this video. And most of the video is for the dog psychology situation, the manipulation of pets. Not only just pets, they're utilizing the same type of manipulation externally with myself. Hypnotic dream suggestions, influence during and throughout the day, trying to implant memories, trying to implant an emotional pattern even though pattern taking is police work and that's what has to be done, but they've done this for decades, even prior to what is supposedly accused of year-date time of criminology type situation, which gets real funky because you start getting into law enforcement and their abilities and their legal rights just gets real funky. It's going to be a guarantee there's at least misconduction. Misconduction leads into it being corruption. On top of there's different forms of corruption and how corruption happens. Some's intentional, some's not 100% intentional and still happens. Still means it's corrupt. There's tons of all of it involved. But I didn't carry that out too well. Like I said, I start getting to where I get blocked up, messed up, and all the rest. And then I'm enforced, well, maybe you need psychological meds. I was told by the psychologist that's assault. Same thing with anybody trying to force the meds without the psychologist approving it is assault. It's also harassment, it's also belittling, and then it leads into understanding somebody's trying to harm you. Somebody's being toxic and causing a displeasurization while they're trying to make it out that they got a right to. With that being said, yeah, just a lot of nasty stuff that, mind manipulation, type of situations and tactics, patterns, and causing those emotional paths, implanting those paths, psychological paths, trying to get you to pick a favoritism number, trying to find out your favorite foods and to heighten that favorite food without it being lovingly, intentionally doing it in a certain way that is more psychological, operational, rather than it being true emotional felt heart value is the way I'll put it. They're utilizing it to manipulate, control, or have some type of force to stick around, to stick to, rather than it being natural stuff between two parties, it being more controlled by that attacking or toxic party. It's hard to say, but anyways, that's also explained. The reason why I like the psychologist that way, because I also seen the information written out in front of my face to a certain basis that they both combined of being real. It wasn't something just offered to me to make me feel better like a toxic person would do to a certain extent of trying to make somebody feel better even though that's not their intent. But anyways, at least some of it's trying to study it. But trying to study, like I said, is a hard situation because I'm being intellectually challenged. As if I don't understand. I don't need to understand that. They'll understand it for me. And that's just completely wrong. Even the psychologist and the county legal agent said the same thing 7 years ago. And that's a massive story because all the brag right of up, there's a lot of down also and a lot of other stuff involved. And even they said was involved, and it's just a complete nasty situation for myself. But trustworthy and giving them heightened props, not fully. A lot of bad things happen, a lot of ridiculization happened. And somebody throwing it out, so what? While there is external involvement that was allowed to operate in their facility, which would make no sense because that would be a certain problem they said shouldn't happen, and it happened right in front of their face, and it's almost like as if they had to take it. Or they allowed it, which would be an emotional trust manipulation, but hey, psychologists that listen to this, if anybody got a hold of it, to a point I wouldn't mind. I don't want the ridiculement from it, and to be ridiculed of, oh no, of course not. Well, you know what, I went in and I asked them for a mental retardation test to start out with. Let's get the situation rolling and the truth out on the table. But sometimes the truth can harm you because it also exposes, damn, you're incapacitated. You haven't been able to socially work, even though mine went down to a bare minimum of functionality. You feed yourself, you eat right, you okay. Yeah. May not be 100% socially workable, but at least I'm taking care of myself type of situation. And they took away the severity of being held in restraint by the system, being probated, held against my will, which they also dubbed as systematical assault from the people trying to enforce that because of their ill will and intent. But that being said, I'm going to cut this video. That's about that. A lot of electronic jamming, tons of other stuff happening. But this is just one situation with animals, pets, and relationships, or force of relationship type of situation. But even animals being manipulated. There's other situations with animals being manipulated and going crazy, even though they wasn't personally owned animals, or the animal was only here for a short amount of time, a few hours to a couple of days maybe type of situation, and somebody utilizing each animal like, they're animals and they have a better mind than you do, more disgracing, more dragged down, put down, not anything of help to stabilize the situation to make it any better, and then making out that they don't have to make it that way. Oh, you don't have to be involved with me. Even the system said you're sticking your nose up my ass, which is a violation of my privacy. Anyways, ending this video. Peace.